Hello, BookShark Bootcamp. It's your community manager, Jana. It is Wednesday, August 26th, and as promised, today is session 8, balancing at home work, socialization, and outings. I know I say this every time, and it might just be a personality defect that I have, but I truly love each session, not only in the order that we present them, but every time I talk about it, that session becomes my favorite. And this one in particular, because I do work at home and I have always worked at home and outside of the house as I was homeschooling my three girls. So I want to be able to impart to you the ways in which I kept my sanity, my scheduling, juggled all of the balls, keep trying to keep everything from dropping while still trying to homeschool, get my girls to be socialized, and do all the outings that we did. I hope that as you are working through this boot camp, these tips are really helpful for you. If you're just starting out, as always, start at the beginning, go back to session 1, and work your way through up to session 8. And if you're starting out just in homeschool and you hear all of this great information and you're like, oh, that's a great tip, you don't really know how to implement it yet because you haven't gotten started. You haven't got into doing the thing in order to know how to do the thing. So we can prep all that we want. As parents, you could read all the parenting books, all the things that you're supposed to have some understanding about. And then you have the child, and the child is atypical, or the child is their normal, but the books didn't tell you about this part, or you read about it, but you didn't really understand it until you got in there and did it. Kind of like how you managed life on very little sleep with a newborn or two newborns, if you are like me and had multiple children at once. So I do once again want to encourage you. It's going to be stressful starting out, no matter what you do. And I don't mean stressful in a negative way. I do believe our society has really put a negative connotation on stress. There is a type of stress that is helpful, and it helps us grow, and it makes us stronger, and it encourages us to keep on. So stress in and of itself is not the culprit. It's the unknown, the unfamiliar. So, as we're building this foundation to get you guys familiar with the program, how to implement it, what it's going to look like, you're really not going to know what you don't know until you start. So, my advice is use the calendar. Whether you printed it out or you have it in a digital form, think about those 144 book days. That foundation is a way to help you feel secure in how you go about your day to day in homeschooling with BookShark. Seems a very intuitive. I would think so many things feel very intuitive for me now, 10 years later, and also having graduated a homeschool student, being a graduate of homeschool. There were still things, even though I had walked through it as a child, there in an adolescent, a teen, there were still things that when I started homeschooling my children, I did incorrectly or did the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And it isn't until we can look back with 2020 hindsight and say, wow, really stressed about things I did not need to stress about. I really stayed up and worried about things that just truly at the end of the day didn't matter. So part of our goal in this boot camp is to help you maybe not stress about the things, because we all stress about the things. Someone can tell you not to stress and then the very thing you do is stress. I get it. We're human. But hopefully you'll hear my words, you'll hear these phrases in the back of your head, and as you are working through it and you come up to some of these obstacles, you'll be like, "Oh wait, I was told this was going to happen. I think there's a solution for this." Do not reinvent the wheel. Do not try to find perfect solutions in an imperfect world. Do the things that you know people have already done before you, even if you just do it until you get your footing. If you just do these suggestions until you find a better way as you are working through the program and you're like, that girl was nuts. This is the way it should be done. I love that. I want you to share that in our community. My way is not the only way. My tips are not the only tips. Oh my gosh, there are so many people out there who can tell you how to do it. I really want you to hear my heart when I say I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm giving you just a foundation. It's almost like vocabulary. So if you're choosing to homeschool, you've come to this new island and it's a different vernacular. We use different vocabulary. It's a different way of life and it is a lifestyle. And you're coming out of something that was so familiar, not only to what you were already maybe doing with your family, but that you yourself had gone through in the public system. So as you come into homeschool and we're trying to find balance, first of all, that's an illusion. I don't really believe that we can have balance in this crazy world. I think that we can have flexibility. So maybe I should really retitle this to Session 8 Flexibility with At Home Work, Socialization, and Outings. So, first and foremost, use your calendar, set up some times, set up a schedule, an outline of how you think your day is going to go. Make sure it's in pencil so that as you move through and you actually start to do the things, you adapt and adjust to the things that work for you. You don't let these sessions or your instructor's guide or homeschooling in general tell you or dictate to you how you're going to homeschool. These are like the bumpers that you pull down when you're bowling, maybe for the first time with your kids or trying to help your kids gain confidence. Once you get into a groove, once you realize what works for you, once you realize what fulfills your family's goals, you can let go of the other things. This is just a foundation. I will say that finding a balance or flexibility in my homeschool with working and outings and socialization is having dedicated time to school. Now, BookShark gives you 4 days a week, 36 weeks. We've talked about it. It's 144 book days. There are years, semesters and years where we actually really did BookShark 3 days a week. And that was because that's what my girls wanted to do. There was other activities, there was several co-ops, there was things that they wanted to do and I was open to that as long as they were able to get their work done. Now, I will also say they were not young when we started homeschooling with BookShark. My twins were 10, very mature 10-year-olds going on 11, and then my younger tagged along with everything. So we didn't really even focus so much on her um, academics until my older two were pretty independent. And then I turned around and focused. And don't get all on me just yet because she is 17, a senior in high school, and taking college courses. So it worked for us. But all of that to say, we made the schedule work for us. So we broke up subjects and did a day and a half or 2 days into one day so that they could do the things that they wanted to do. We did have a co op that was almost, it wasn't quite an 8 hour day. Maybe it was like 6.5, 7 hours, one day a week. At one point, I had my children on 2 different days because one of the twins wanted to branch out and do her own thing and meet some new friends. So she went on a different day, which I have to say, I thought was very brave of her. And she's probably my bravest of them all at this point, ironically. So I was at co op twice a week with different kids. We did another program, which was an all day program. They were with another set of kids. Sometimes some of these things kind of overlapped, and some kids went to both in our community, but it was another day. They wanted to do an activity, which was a different day. I worked outside the home and inside the home while I was homeschooling. So, how I balanced it was I definitely worked the day that they were in co op. Hopefully, in the years that they're all on the same day co op. That was my day that I dedicated to a full day work. And actually, I probably did a day and a half of work. My spouse would come through town and he would pick them up and take them home, feed them dinner, and they would usually be in bed before I even got home. So that was my very long day. But I took advantage of that co op day. Now, there are co ops where parents have to kind of sub in or participate, or they're not drop off co ops. I get that. This one was, see you guys. And I actually usually didn't see them until the next day. That's how I did. I got a day and a half of work done usually on that day. Then for us, my husband only worked 4 days a week. So he did 4 10s. So on that fifth day of the week, I went and worked another day outside the home because he was home with our girls. And as they got older and independent and able to stay home, that really didn't matter. And his schedule kind of switched around a little bit. But that was a second day. So I got 2.5 days part time work. And then I did work one day on the weekend, which, wow, talking about it now, I feel like I'm exhausted just remembering all of that. To be fair, I was a hairstylist. I made my own schedule. I was in control of my hours, but that's how it worked out for me. Now, for the times that I was working at home while homeschooling, working for BookShark, working for a few other different companies, I really just managed the time is I let my kids sleep in. I did my work in the morning before they even woke up. I did my work at lunchtime when they were doing independent work and having a block of time where they were going to do something, have lunch, do something again independently. That gave me a block of time to work on my own. I also worked in the evenings when my husband came home. So flexibility is key. You can do it the other way around. You can let your kids play all day long. You work from home, let them play all day long, whatever that looks like for you. And then when your spouse comes home and you have the time, then you put in the schoolwork. And again, we're talking, depending on their age, 2.5 to 4 hours. So if you didn't even start till like 4, you'd be done by 8. Now, I get that. Like, when would you have dinner? But it's being creative and thinking outside the box is the way to manage these things to get them done. You can homeschool on the weekends. Nobody says you have to homeschool Monday through Friday just because that's how everybody does it. And it doesn't mean you can't be flexible and do the co-ops and the outings for socialization during the week. Have somebody pick them up while you're at work. Have somebody drop them off. Homeschooling communities are, I have found at least, very helpful. And a lot of my friends who did not work while homeschooling their kids were always willing to help me out, drop them off at my job if my husband couldn't be there to pick them up. Pick them up if there was an activity, but I just couldn't get away to get them there. So that is one thing that I think having community and building community is really important. And maybe you feel like, well, my people in my community aren't like that. Then you be that person. Do what you can and start seeing who you can swap out those things with. But that is a way to balance how you do that. So you devote time to do the school, you devote time to do the work, and then you kind of just figure out how it all works together. But you can't figure it out until you start to do it. So another thing is how much distraction happens when we are homeschooling. So I found that putting my phone on do not disturb at very specific times. If I was going to do a read aloud, if we were going to read our history together, they had questions about language arts they wanted to go over. Science, I really gave them free reign from the beginning. And like I said, the younger sibling just went along with the older sibling. So wasn't too worried about that. My husband did science experiments with them, supervised on Fridays when I was not home. So don't send me any messages about child safety. I promise we were always very safe. I also left my kids home alone when it was age appropriate for me to be able to go do the things that I had to do. Typically, it was to go to work. They had some hours where, like, I would have to leave sometimes before their dad got home, and so that's a whole nother topic. I'm actually going to be doing a podcast with the founder of Let Grow. She is part of a nationwide movement to help us parents get back to being more comfortable with letting our children be responsible for themselves at a younger age. That's a whole nother thing. But just think back about how much time you had on your own with your friends and your siblings when you were a kid. And it really depends on your age. I'm almost 50, so it's probably way different than it is for some of you younger parents who are closer to your late 20s, early 30s. We'll talk about that later. So, dedicated time, dedicated space, dedicated hours. I put a do not disturb, and you can even put messages. So, if you put it on do not disturb and it says, "Thanks for sending me this. I'm currently tied up, not tied up. I'm currently dedicating this time to my kids," whatever you need to do. If then you have this panic of, I can't turn my phone off, I can't put it on do not disturb. What if there's an emergency? What if something happens? I get it, you guys. Like, I don't even like to walk the neighborhood without my phone, trying to take steps to do things better. In fact, when I was watching an older session a couple of years ago, I was saying how I couldn't even sleep without my phone next to my bed. I now would like to confess I don't sleep with my phone next to my bed. It is charged and in my bathroom, and the ringer is on. It is on do not disturb, and the only people who can get through are my adult children who do not live at home. So, baby steps, right? But explaining to your friends, your family, your spouse, hey, these are the hours we're going to try to not be disturbed. set up a system that if there is an emergency, they can get a hold of you. It again sounds so elementary, but it is true. Think of how many times you're distracted. Think of how many times your kids are distracted. To mitigate some of that, especially as you're getting into your groove and finding your routine, do not disturb is incredibly helpful on your phone, on your email. Even companies are seeing now that multitasking is not necessarily effective or efficient as we first thought it was. So block out times. You'll return calls at lunch. You'll return calls after 3 p.m., emails, all of those things. That's how you stay focused and flexible at the same time. Okay. So put away any distractions. You wouldn't want your kids to have like your favorite thing right in front of them while you're trying to do a math lesson. Hopefully you're using Nicole, the math lady, so you're not even having to do math lessons. But if you did, think of something that they needed concentration. You're not going to have it within arm's reach. Same thing for your phone. Oh, I know I sound like one of those crazy, like anti-tech people. And I'm really not, I promise. But I am telling you from experience that I would literally have conversations with my kids. We were discussing something. We were in the midst of learning, and my phone would ding, and I'm just Pavlov's dog. I would pick it up, and it would be a client. It would be something I needed to attend to. I would redirect. I'd zone out, and then they'd be like, "Mom, mom," and I'd be like, "Oh, what? Sorry." Think back now, now that I really am uninvolved in their day-to-day education because they are adults, how much time that I didn't truly give them because I was distracted. And if I could go back, I would implement some of these things more strictly so that I could, with confidence, say that I was homeschooling my girls with intention. So that is truly what we're trying to establish here is intentional time uh, dedicated to schooling your children. And it's not that much time. It really isn't. If it's half a day, then you have the rest of the day. There's if you slept for 8 hours, if you homeschooled for 8 hours for half a day, let's say even 6 hours a day, it's only 14 hours. That's still 10 hours left in the day. So, all right, enough about that. Socialization, those 444 book days of 36 weeks leaves you 36 days of elective days for fun, educational. I use that word loosely. I just think learning, fun learning days, theater, musicals, science centers, sports activities, art museums, living historical museums, historical sites. So many times we would just drive to a park that had a placard about local history or local environmental history, and we would just like read it, and then they would go play, and that counted. Like I wanted to combine life and learning for my girls. So we definitely made a lot of plans. We did a lot of things. We planned with others, which was great. I loved having other families come along with us. It was more enjoyable for me. A lot of times it was more enjoyable for my kids. So be intentional. And if you are not a person who naturally gravitates to be around more people, that's okay. Find your circle. It doesn't have to be big, but also know something that we commonly hear with homeschoolers is the lack of socialization. There are plenty of public school children that are not social. There are plenty of homeschool kids that are very social. I am one of them. Just because I homeschooled doesn't mean I didn't have friends or do the things. Example, I worked at a grocery store in my high school years, and I went to prom with a coworker. He invited me to his prom. I did not miss it on prom. My husband was a public school kid. He did not go to prom. He did not want to go to prom. So I want us to remember that while we have maybe some idealized things about our experiences or our high school times or our school years, we tend to forget the negative and hold on to the positive. Some people, which I think is wonderful. But all that to say is you may not have super social kids. You may yourself might not be super social. That's okay. But make sure that you are bringing the outside world in, or you're getting out into the outside world, even if that just means going outside. So much research. I'm listening to so many podcasts and reading so many books about just getting outside, turning off the screen, disconnecting from the worldwide constant chatter and being in nature and how that is so soothing to our mental health. So as homeschool parents, you have the ability to do that in a just a snap of the finger. So stop, take it outside. Take the schoolwork outside and do it outside. Read underneath the trees, go to the park, find just the different things. Bring the chairs, bring the lawn chairs, set up. I remember in college I used to go to this beautiful I don't even remember in Illinois what it would have been called, like a preserve. And I would literally pull a lawn chair out of my back seat because I grew up camping and I would just sit and that's where I would read just quietly to get some of my schoolwork done. So that is really beneficial for your kids as well. So that's your socialization. There's no lack of it. If you're not socializing, it's going to be because I truly believe you just don't want to, and that is also like your prerogative. But don't let people say that homeschool kids are not socialized because I am 48 and I homeschooled in the 90s. I was very socialized, and my children homeschooled in the 2000s, very socialized. I think now more than ever we have to almost protect our at home time because there's so much that we can do. So, your outings. So much to do. Don't overcommit. This girl, huge at overcommittal. I wanted to do everything all the time. I found more energy being outside my home than being at my home. Being home, I saw all the things I needed to do, the laundry, the cleaning, the meal prepping, all the things. I loved being outside the home with my kids. I felt more free. That worked for me. But I had to be careful not to overcommit. I had to plan wisely. I had to remember that the charter, if you're in a charter or your co-op, like for my girls, that was first. That we needed to make it a commitment that we were going to be there every week before I said yes to anything else. I used my calendar. I made sure that when I scheduled in our things, I wasn't taking away time from other things that we knew we wanted to do as well. I knew I wanted to finish my curriculum at the end of the school year. Didn't have to. I'm not saying that's the perfect way to do it. Just my personality. I've gotten a lot better over the years, but that was my goal, especially in the beginning. So I wasn't going to say yes to something if it was going to throw us off and take us away from our bigger goal, which was to finish. Now, 10 years later, I might tweak that a little bit. I want one of my girls now, as I look back, especially at all the pictures that we took. Oh, I love scrolling through those pictures to see all the things that we did. We did definitely, we flexed a lot and we still got it done. And they're all three in college. So it really does all work out. What worked especially well for me is to start with the end in mind. So, like I said, the goal of getting it finished and then reverse engineering, working back using the calendar, knowing when we could say yes, when we could move things, when we could do an extra day of this, when we could skip something. That came a couple years into my homeschool. I realized, yes, you can actually skip something. And then we did prioritize the academics. That was important to me, but it wasn't to check the box. It was more so that I knew my girls were truly learning to be critical thinkers, to have empathy, to be able to assimilate into the world as contributing members of society. So balance that with the fun, the adventure in learning. I didn't want my kids to ever think that like this was the fun and the learning was not the fun. Really tried to be intentional of melding those two together. And then here's my 3 R's: re-energize, rest, and remember. So what do you do as a family that's going to re-energize you? What constitutes as rest in your family? What does it look like packing everything up and going and sitting at the beach on a Saturday? That's my ideal idea of rest. It is not my husband's idea of rest. And it depends on which child, which day, if you ask them if that is restful to them. So, what works for you guys as rest? And then remember, remember you made a choice to do something different and that it's going to take time to get comfortable finding your way in this new world, new journey. So I want to make sure that you guys hear me when I say it's going to take time. It's not going to just magically all work together. Now, sometimes it does. I see posts and I see beautiful emails that say it's working smoothly, everything's going great, and that is the goal. But know that it takes time to get there. So I'd love for you to post for your homework for session 8, 3 things that you will implement to strike a balance in your homeschool. Are you going to put the do not disturb on? Are you going to um, plan some outings with some friends? Are you going to make sure that you have specific hours to do the specific things? What are some of the things that you guys are going to do so that you can get a real good handle on balancing or flexing for all the things that as a parent you need to do? Because remember, you are now the instructor or facilitator, however you want to say that. You're still in charge of the household. You're still the emotional regulator. You're still the um, partner, friend, child. We're all of these things all of the time. So thinking back to the last session about self care and the things that you're going to do to remember you, who you are, and the things that you like to do, and balancing all of that with the things that you now have accepted as a challenge to start homeschooling your children. And just remember that we're here. Your community is here. We're building community for you. We want to help you make those decisions, see what works for you, share what you're going to be doing, because maybe something that you came up with is the exact solution that somebody has been looking for. So pay it forward and share. I'll just we'll quickly go over these last. We'll just recap. Went a little bit long, but here's your keys. Be home to homeschool, or at least have dedicated time and space if you're not physically in your home. Plan your 144 book days. Make sure that that is devoted to school, and use your calendar because that's going to help you stay accountable. Inform others of your do not disturb hours. The expectation to be set is really helpful, so then you're not getting annoyed and you're like, why is my mom always calling at this time when she knows that we're homeschooling? Like, maybe she doesn't know. Maybe you just need to tell her. Keep distractions at bay. Really try hard to put yourself in a place where you're honoring and being intentional with your time with your children when you are schooling. And then the best advice I can give you is squeeze in that work, whether it is paid or unpaid work, um, when your child's doing independent schooling or outside of those hours. So I even now have to set timers when I do laundry, and I don't do a lot of laundry, you guys. Everyone's really independent in my household. So everyone does their own laundry. But when I have to do my own, I have to literally set a timer. Otherwise, my laundry will sit in the washer for far too long, or it won't come out of the dryer for days or until somebody else wants to start their own loads of laundry. So timers being set, to me, that is my biggest friend at this point, so that with all the things going on, it helps remind me. So timer for your 2010 rule, timer for when you're just going to stop and get to those emails and those texts and those phone calls, timers for when you are doing chores, that you time it out so that you know if you're going to sit down and do a read aloud for 30 minutes, and your timer for your laundry may go off during that time. Make sure you set your timer for an hour, so that when your timer goes off on your phone, you're like, oh, that's right, I did have something that I needed to accomplish and finish, and now's a great time to do it. Again, I hope all of this are um, is why we're here. We're here to encourage you and to help you, and to see your journey in homeschool be the best that it can. I will be back on Monday to talk about any questions that you may have about this session. We will do a bonus session in a week from today. Next Wednesday, we'll do a quick bonus session. We'll do some wrap up things, and then you're going to have a holiday on the following Monday. Nobody's going to be in the office. We're not going to be doing any work. I hope you're not going to be doing any work. And then we will switch to monthly live sessions and live Q&As. And I already have a guest lined up for September, so you guys get a reprieve from hearing me. Have a wonderful weekend. I will be back on Monday, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.